how you got into this. What was your childhood experience like with animals that made you love doing this and make this into your life's mission?
Sure. I have a kind of interesting arc here, and I started like many people in dogs. As a kid, I wanted a dog really badly. Finally convinced the parents at 12 years old to let me get a dog. They let me get a German Shepherd, but with the caveat that I would have to train it. So I took a class from the local German Shepherd Dog Club in San Diego, and it launched an interest in dogs. So I got into showing dogs in conformation, competitive obedience through the AKC and that sort of thing. And
Mm.
then when I was in high school, I went to a dog show and saw a demo of police and military dogs at a dog show. And I immediately, as a 17-year-old, was like, hey, I want to do that. Of course, none of the dogs that I had were at all suitable for that kind of work. So I joined a local dog club and learned to do what they call the decoy work, or the person that gets bit by the dogs, because I was young and relatively able.
Mhm.
And I kind of entered into the sport world that way. Um, I had no intention of making it a career at all. It was a hobby all through high school and college. And right about when I was graduating my undergraduate, a club that I had trained with in the past as a sport trainer had a bunch of new members, and they asked me to come back and give a little kind of introductory clinic to the new members. And so I did that. It went relatively well. And another club asked me, hey, will you come and give a little clinic to our club? And I said, sure, why not? Right? And I did another one and another one and another one. And it slowly kind of picked up steam. And while my wife was in graduate school, um, I decided that, well, I'll do some dog training while she's in school. That way, we shouldn't both be in school at the same time. And I started to do more and more seminars. And we were living in New York at the time, and I did some pet dog training on the side while I was there. But most of my career has been teaching to dog trainers or dog training organizations,
Hmm.
either dog clubs, police, military, service dog organizations, all those sorts of things. And I guess one day I sort of looked up after doing lots and lots of these and said, I guess this is my career. And so for 10 years, 12 years, I traveled full time, giving clinics to dog organizations. And in 2009, I was a little bit tired of traveling every weekend. I was traveling 40 weeks a year. I decided to open a school for dog trainers. I could have sort of settled down and done private dog training, but I'd been coaching dog trainers for the last more than a decade. So in 2009, I opened the Michael Ellis School for Dog Trainers, where trainers came either to learn from the ground up to be dog trainers, or already experienced dog trainers would come to kind of keep up with what was current, sort of as a continuing education sort of thing.
Do they get a certain certification from you if they do your program?
They did. So now I've been doing that for, well, I guess 16 years now. And this last year, I sort of moved away from the full-time in-person dog training school.
Okay.
I've moved into an online format with a membership service, and I give, a half a dozen clinics a year to kind of special organizations and groups. So in an attempt to sort of slow down and not do the 70-hour work weeks anymore. So.
I'm curious why dog trainers as opposed to training pet owners, like you said. Is there a difference between who's listening, maybe? Why?
Yeah, so I think part of it was because I had come up as a dog trainer,
Mhm.
as a sport dog trainer, and as well as a pet dog trainer, and was coaching other trainers. I felt that I had sort of more to offer other trainers that were interested in getting into dog training. I also
Mm.
felt like I could impact more people if I hit trainers. So if I'm going to go out one-on-one and help individuals train their dog, then there's only so many people that I can contact in a
Right.
year.
So it was a
If I
smart
train
business
other
move.
trainers, then it's sort of a trickle down effect, right? And they get out there and those trainers affect, and it's kind of a multiplier effect. So I decided I could sort of do the most good there.
Yeah. So I'm curious, now that you are so into the dog training world and the dog trainers, what would you say is the biggest misconception that people have about dog training in general?
That there is some specific single thing that you're going to do that's going to solve your problems or make your relationship with your dog, right? Dog training, when it's done correctly, is sort of boring and undramatic, right? So people have a tendency these days, I'm sure you're well aware with the the world of social media, that
Mm,
people have a tendency to look at things like, hey, there's like some quick fix to this, or it should be really flashy if it's good. But really, dog training is just about consistency, relationship, showing up, and it's very incremental and it's an
mm,
ongoing process, right? So one of the things that you see is that people think, oh, I can do 2 weeks of work or 6 weeks of work or 2 months of work with my dog, and then my dog will be trained. But it doesn't work that way. It's kind of an ongoing process
mm.
and it's really incremental. And so I think for most people, that's the biggest thing. When you take the average person and they are having an issue with their dog or they want to work with it, they go to a trainer and they say, how long is this going to take? All right. Like, are you going to be able to fix my problem in X amount of time? And so
Right,
I think that's the biggest misconception is how long it takes and what it kind of looks like on a day-to-day basis.
right. So I know a lot of trainers focus on obedience, where I think from what I've learned, a lot of what you do is really relationship building. Am I correct?
It's true. Yeah. I mean, both things, it all comes together, right? So I think there's a little bit of a misconception about obedience as well. Like people look at obedience just like, oh, I'm going to tell you what to do and you're going to do it because I said I do it, right? As opposed to this is a collaboration that comes out of our entire relationship. And
Right.
if the dog and I play together and I find ways to motivate you and I'm consistent and I provide good leadership, then the obedience portion of it sort of takes care of itself. But it's a holistic process. Everything you do with the dog is training, whether you want it to or not. And that's
Right.
one of the things that people struggle a little bit with as well. This idea that when I'm not training right now, you're always training. Everything
Got
you're
it.
doing with the dog affects your relationship and how it's going to move forward. So getting people to kind of look at the big picture is an important piece of the puzzle as well.
Right, right. Um, would you say, in talking about obedience, so many people struggle with whether it's okay to use those shock collars or chains or, keep them in the crate most of the day and unless they're out training. What are your thoughts on that?
I think every tool that you see around in dog training at this point is there for a reason. And there are specific situations in which all of those tools are useful and the right solution for a given dog. And so I
Right.
think the biggest problem now is people want to say there's one way to do this, and that tool's a bad tool and that tool's a good tool. They all have the potential to be good and bad,
Mm,
depending on how they're used. And what is the right solution for one dog is completely the wrong for another. And
mm,
so right now, my mission is to sort of educate people on the proper use of all these tools and the situations in which they might be used. Not meaning that you would use one on every single dog you encounter, but they have their place. And so, and when they're used correctly, they work beautifully. There's no damage to the relationship and the dog. And you'll see many, many very happy working dogs that enjoy their lives. And those tools also have the potential, if they're used correctly, to give the dogs more freedom, right?
mm,
So one of the things that happens when people have dogs that are disobedient is they don't take them places, right? If that dog is unruly and they doesn't come when it's called and things like that, that dog leads an impoverished life because it doesn't get to go out to all the places that the well-trained dog does. And so if those tools allow us to access a larger life for a dog, then I think it's a worthwhile trade-off.